guys, welcome back to Liv's Vivas. I forgot to do week 12's Viva, so forgotten week 12's Viva, here we come. Let's dive in. Week 12's question was, how did Oscar Wilde and the aesthetics movement shape modern perspectives? So before we jump into our Viva, let's talk a little bit about what the aesthetics movement was. So the aesthetics movement was in the mid-19th century and it had this obsession with pure beauty and how do I say that word? That doesn't sound appropriate. sensuality. And it basically kind of tried to take over and outshine the Victorian traditionalism. It affected art, music, literature, fashion, and interior design. It easily disregarded moral expectations in order to achieve ultimate creativity and self-expression. So although it was often the object of ridicule among conservative Victorians, the aesthetic movement helped set the stage for global 20th century modern art. And it did this through art for art's sake, decadence, and irony and posture. So the first way that the aesthetics movement helped shape the 20th century's modern art is it created art for art's sake. This was a challenged public claim that art was devoted from any moral or narrative content. So during this time period, art was always telling a story or had kind of rules that they followed. But the aesthetics movement really just had this idea that you express a mood or something beautiful to look at was a radical idea. So literally this was just not an idea that people thought of. And this obviously played a huge role in modern art as we look at different art today. So there's a dramatic shift in the meaning and the appreciation towards art. It could be judged by beauty, and this kind of way of thinking really changed the definition of beauty to be more subjective and personal than, concrete. Jonathan Jones says, quote, the aesthetics movement was dangerous. This was the age of Gladstone, the British Empire, the pious bourgeoisie, end quote. So Walter Payton, he was a man that lived during this time. He lived from 1839 to 1894, and he was an English essayist and a literary and art critic and fiction writer. So he was a really great stylist, and his work encouraged the normalization of creative art for art's sake. He played a significant role in the development of Oscar Wilde's aesthetics, being his teacher, and he considered to be the father of the aesthetic movement. He kind of passed the torch to Oscar Wilde, and then Oscar Wilde kind of comes in and he does a lot of spin-offs off of Pater's views on art. So Walter Pater was just really a huge role in creating the aesthetics movement and art for art's sake. So our second point on how the aesthetics movement really shaped modern art today is through decadence. So decadence can be defined as the process of falling away from a better or more vital state. So this definition kind of goes along the aspect of aestheticism. So the decadence movement was the deterioration and the embrace of inevitable doom. So this was just the mindset that can be seen in their worldviews and morals during this time, and the mindset really complemented the search for beauty and the aesthetics movement. So it kind of combined beauty and just this, creativity and self-expression with kind of downfall and scariness and intensity. Claude Phillips says, quote, "The keystone to the art for the 19th century is sadness, heart-searching melancholy, revolt against surrounding circumstance," end quote. Edgar Allan Poe, we can see this through him. He was an American writer, editor, and literary critic, and he's best known for his poetry and short stories. He is a central figure in Romanticism, and he is kind of known as the father of detective fiction genre. So he really influenced the aesthetic authors. So there was really him, there was Charles Boudaille and Algernon Swinburne. I know those are wrong. Whatever, Hogan. He's giving me a thumbs up. So they were really critical for pushing this idea of decadence, and they were really kind of responsible for the spread of it. Poe used horror genre, and he made it really popular and really beautiful. So this was a great example of a mix between decadence and the aesthetics movement. Poe, Boudaille, and Swinburne challenged conservative Victorian values and redefined poetic beauty through creating really heartfelt and sadness and emotions. Finally, our third point on how the aesthetics movement transformed and where's my thesis? Helped set the stage for the 20th century modern art is through irony and posturing. So the Bohemian culture is an artist or literary consciously or unconsciously succeeds from conversationality in life and in art. So Oscar Wilde can be kind of an example of this, and he was born to a surgeon and a poet in Dublin in 1854. He's considered a celebrity in the Bohemian culture. So while he was in college, Oscar Wilde was not really into fashion or appearance norms, and instead he really studied and focused and was kind of obsessed with Walter Parton and John Ruskin. So this allowed for him to truly appreciate the ancient and Renaissance art. Wilde earned the title Professor of Aesthetics, and this is because he had poetic skills, he appealed to the less educated, and he had a talent for self-publicizing. So Wilde's image and his posture particularly is kind of a really big taste for aesthetic clothing, interior design, and amateur philosophy, which he totally embraced. You can see this through the pictures and the slides. He's always kind of like laid back and chilling out. He wrote several comedies which created irony in literature, which was kind of seen for the first time during the aesthetics movement. And he also embraced decadence in his work, one of his most famous examples being The Picture of Dorian Gray. So we also see the aesthetics movement through interior design. Interior design and decoration played a huge role in creativity. There were elements associated with aestheticism were embossed wood with gilt highlights, Far Eastern influence, prominent use of nature and blue and white on porcelain and fine china. So Friedrich Lichten lived from 1830 to 1896, and he was a famous British artist who was kind of known for designing his home to be just an image of aesthetic ideas, including Arabic tiles, delicate fountains, bronze, and flowers. So he used a lot of that to create his home because he liked the aesthetics movement. So some anonymous person said that, quote, the aesthetics movement had a dark side. The hero of Wilde's novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, destroys lives in his pursuit of beauty without limits, end quote. So again, just this mixture of kind of sadness and emotion mixed with beauty, and seeing beauty in kind of everything, even though it's cannot always be beautiful or not always positive. It was just a really big part of the aesthetics movement. So although it was often the object of ridicule among conservative Victorians, the aesthetics movement helped set the stage for global 20th century modern art. And it did this through making art for art's sake, decadence movement, and irony and posture. Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry I didn't post it or didn't make it. And yeah, see you guys next week.